I've been religious. I was raised Catholic, Christian. I've been very super religious. I've also been spiritual. I have been spiritual. In the mid 2000s, I got into Buddhism and all that. Stuff, just playing around with it, really. And then, and I've also been awakened as well. And there's a difference between those three things. And we're going to talk about that today because I have experience in all three. Wow. And I'm also a shaman. Wow. I'm a weirdo, y'all. You don't normally hear from people like me. You don't. I'm a weirdo. And I did a Google search about how many shamans are in the US. And shamanism is the fastest growing religion and rising trend in health practices. So we're on the cutting edge here. This is a rising trend. It's trendy. But I will say shamanism is not a religion. It's a spiritual practice. It's a spiritual practice. There aren't many rules in shamanism. So, when I was first initiated and there were these shamanism groups and they're like, you're co-opting another culture and the indigenous people are gonna be mad and all of this stuff. And that's not true. Shamanism, the fact that shamans get awakened in this culture. Y'all think I wanted to be a shaman? I told you I wanted to be a stand-up comedian. That's what I wanted to do. But spirits don't give a shit about what you want to do. They don't give a fuck about what you want to do. So this topic came from a comment from a viewer and highlighting the difference between spiritual and awakening. I thought this would be a wonderful topic to get on the page of that. The page of all of us on the same page. I love you guys so much. Thank you for going on this journey with me as I become a better shaman, easing fears. People may not like their fears eased. I'll tell you that. They get pretty hostile if you try to calm them down. And just love. Hey, truth, love, freedom. I want y'all to break those chains that bind you. I want you to be free. So on today's episode of the Shaman Patrick Show, let's talk about religious people, spiritual people, and awakened people and the differences between them all. Are you ready? Let's go.
He was once a storm in human form, sharp tongue, cold soul, heart worn and torn, living like a ghost who missed his grave till the spirit sang out and called him brave. He got rewired by the great unknown, heard the call like a dial tone to the bone. So pull up a chair, enjoy the glow. This is the Shaman Patrick Show.
So this channel functions in a variety of ways. Like I feel that it's necessary to educate people about shamans and shamanism, because many people don't know about it. And for those of you that do know about it, y'all are pretty excited that there's a little gay ass shaman talking about shamans and shamanism. You don't want to be a shaman. I'll wave people away from it. There is no glory. There is no, people do not treat you better. In fact, people might treat you worse because a shaman is a direct threat to the ego, to control systems. Shamans are guards against tyranny. So are gay people, and guards against authoritarianism. And so when shamans get born in a culture, it's because they're necessary and they're needed. And I just make videos every day talking about things. And some of you are extremely comforted by some of the things I talk about. Some of you feel confronted by some of the things that I talk about. But, if you're like me, you want to face those fears. You want to get confronted. Some of you have said, Patrick, do a deep dive on Palantir because Palantir is very scary. They're doing scary things. And I'm naturally going to be suspicious about that, right? Because in the last video, I talked about how the elites are terrified of AI. Anything that will disrupt those power structures, they're terrified of. So over the past week, I have been listening to talks from the co-founders, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, and I haven't found anything disturbing. I'm considering doing a deep dive on it. If you don't want to be afraid of Palantir, you don't have to, because there's not really anything scary going on. In fact, there's a lot of good things going on with Palantir. So if you need to be afraid of something, I've shifted. I'm not about fear anymore, if I ever was. But this channel might grow faster if I said that you should be afraid of this. But I don't want to be that. I want to be the antidote to fear. And I'm going to talk about that in a later episode, but I want to get that straight. Don't come here expecting to be terrified of stuff. What you can expect here is facing the truth about things. You're not supposed to be afraid of stuff. An awakened person is not going to be afraid of anything. So in today's presentation, we're going to talk about that. If a spiritual person is probably going to be afraid of stuff, a religious person is probably going to be afraid of stuff, but an awakened person, they're not really afraid of jack shit. So let's get into today's presentation. Here, let me adjust this. Lord, I do so much at this computer. Many love to slap a label on themselves. I'm spiritual, I'm religious, or the boldest flex of all, I'm awakened. But these aren't the same thing, no matter how much the lines can get blurred. Being spiritual is an ongoing exploration, a personal attempt to connect with something beyond the daily grind, and often with the ego still riding shotgun. And I've told you that spiritual ego, if you've got even a hint of spiritual ego in you, let's get rid of that shit. It is not good for you. It's not good for others. And it is malevolent and dangerous. Hey, the regular ego is hopeless enough and bad enough. But when that spiritual ego takes hold, so you can have a spiritual awakening. Many people have spiritual awakenings and ego snaps back into place. And there's a chapter in our book about an incomplete understanding of ego. I want you to have a complete understanding of ego. Because if you really knew what you were dealing with, you wouldn't fuck with it at all. You wouldn't say shit like, we need an ego. That's the dumbest shit that I've ever fucking heard. You don't need an ego. You don't, because the world is different now. Enough consciousness has flowed in to this reality that the ego is no longer necessary. You don't need it. You have the ability now to create a morphogenetic field around you. You have the power to bring in infinite intelligence. And you don't need an ego anymore because your impulses matter. You could start trusting your impulses. Like, oh, let's go. What did we do the other day? I'm like, we need to go to the store. And then we ran into somebody that needed to talk to us. The ego has no role in that. Somebody who was having a hard time in recovery. And I just had the impulse like, oh, we need to go to the store. And we went to the store and we ran into this person that we haven't seen for a while and they needed to see us. So ego has nothing to do with that shit. All right. So if you're a divine being in a human body having a human experience that you chose to have, then you don't need it. And that's it. That's it. People fight me on this. And I know many people fight me on the things that I'm trying to help them with. Why would somebody fight somebody when they're trying to help them? It's ego. Okay. So being religious is following a set of pre-written rules, joining a community and outsourcing your morality and meaning to a divine authority figure. And that's what religion is. It's an outsourcing. It's an outsourcing. I was going to do a deep dive on this creator who's an ex-New Ager. and she's a Christian now, and she's really hard to listen to. It's really like she didn't really know what she was talking about when she was a New Ager. And she had all these weird beliefs that I don't know why she was in the New Age. But now she's a Christian, and Christianity is something that on the surface is really easy to get. It's one of those things that's like, it's real easy to get. But if you start poking at it a little bit, start prodding it a little bit, you see it fails to address the wide range of human experiences. And you can go beyond Christianity. There's nothing wrong with Christianity. But if you start pushing or poking or asking too many questions of a preacher or a priest, the way they react is very fear-based. Christianity is a lot about fear and control and submission. So religion is a lot about that. Just, here are some beliefs. Would you like to try these on? And some people try those beliefs on and they say, well, this doesn't fit. And if those Christian beliefs don't fit you, then the Christians will say that you are wrong. You need to submit to this authority. If you know about the history of Catholicism and the Catholic Church and all of that, it was largely made to control people. Religion is a tool of control. It doesn't mean, that it's bad. Some people like to be controlled. Some people are really sick like that. They're like, control me. I don't trust myself. And that's fine. If you don't trust yourself, religion is great. But being awakened, however, is something altogether different. It's a total demolition of the ego, a radical, I'm saying radical, shift in consciousness, and the freedom that comes from realizing you were never who you thought you were. And let me talk about awakening just a little bit. Awakening, everything changes. Like you see through the illusions of spirituality, and you see through the illusions of religion, you see through the illusions of government, you see through the illusions of it all. You awaken. And yeah, there's people out there who talk about being awakened, but they're mad at the president. They think racism is real. They think Republicans are trying to take away women's rights. That's not awakened, okay? An awakened person is going to look at this stuff and go, so what? So what? Ain't got nothing to do with me. So what? Ooh, that would be a good song, wouldn't it? So what? Ain't got nothing to do with me. I'm a child of God, bitch. I'm a child of God, bitch. So the stuff that goes on in the world is just stuff. It ain't got nothing to do with me. So an awakened person is going to look at that stuff and just kind of, And Merrick and I have talked about this. If it is a communist takeover, so what? If we are entering a 1984 world of mass surveillance, so what? What do you want me to do about it? I can stay present, create a powerful morphogenetic field, so that stuff don't even fucking matter to me. You see? Because an awakened person is taking themselves off the wheel of karma. They've taken their pieces off the chessboard. They're not participating in the ego or the mutually agreed upon fictions. That's why it doesn't matter to them. An awakened person cannot be controlled through fear or threats or intimidation because they know, so what? Ain't got nothing to do with me. And while there's plenty of overlap, religious folks who don't fully buy in, spiritual seekers who just foreplay enlightenment, and groups that inevitably rot from ego's infection, the way each responds to being challenged reveals the real difference. The awakened live in peace and fearlessness, while the others cling to scripts, dogmas, or half-baked identities. And half-baked is right. Like you could almost buy a spiritual costume at Party City or Spirit Halloween, and just because it's a role. It's a role that you can inhabit. And many people who go through an awakening, that seems like it's the only game in town, right? Because let's be real. People who deal with grounded, real, rough, raw spirituality, we often don't get into the algorithm. We don't. And so the costumes look good. The costumes get a lot of attention. That insert spiritual person here, that gets a lot of attention because it's comforting. You know, it's difficult to go through an identity dissolution process without wanting to cling to something else. And so I feel like the viewers of this channel are more awakening into awakening. And I see subscribers come on. And then I see when subscribers leave. Subscribers tend to leave when I get into the real raw spirituality. Shamanism is not for everybody. It ain't. And neither is awakening. The vast majority of people on the planet will not awaken. They will stay asleep until the day that they die. So at some point, you stop trying to chase people down and say, hey, would you like to awaken? No. You can't do that. You can focus on yourself and yourself only. But I want to talk about just people. Good God. It's 6:00 in the morning. I gotta go make breakfast for my husband here in a little bit, but we're really not that different. The ego loves to convince us we're one-of-a-kind snowflakes, but scratch the surface and you'll see the same wiring in everyone. Fear, pride, shame, love, longing. Do a little shadow work and it becomes obvious. People are more alike than they are different. That's why spotting the difference between being spiritual, religious, and awakened isn't rocket science. A religious person clings to dogma and an external authority. A spiritual seeker is still bargaining with the ego while chasing meaning. An awakened person, they've dropped the act completely. No more rigidity, no more fear. The behavior patterns are predictable because the wiring is the same. The only real difference is whether someone is still outsourcing responsibility or finally owning their shit. And once you own it, the judgments stop because you see in others exactly what you've already faced in yourself. This can be difficult to understand unless you've worked helping other people, like working with people in recovery. The reason that sponsorship in AA works and the reason that mentoring works is every time I help somebody in their first 30 days, I remember when I had the same weird ideas and beliefs. I see it clearly. Like if you want, I could be a master psychic for people in early recovery. Like I could, but I don't ever do that, but I could tell them things that would blow their mind. You can predict the future for someone in ego consciousness. The ego, see, the thing about the ego is it's so fucking predictable. It's boring. It's a fucking script. It's so stupid, dumb, and boring. And when you're outside of it, you see it all play out, and that's what psychics are. Psychics have an understanding of the human brain and consciousness and how it works. It's not some mystical, magical ability. It is, you know enough about human beings and the psyche of human beings, and you've done enough research, and maybe you've worked with enough people. You can see how people will make decisions. If somebody makes a decision that goes against what they believe, it's ego. Someone came to stay with Merrick and myself, and he did something weird with his dirty clothes. Like he was apologizing for having dirty clothes. I used to do that shit. I used to apologize for just being around. I was raised by alcoholic narcissists, and I'm like, the chances are high that this person was also raised by alcoholic narcissists. And I knew that by why would he treat his dirty, because he took him and he put him on the floor in front of the washing machine like a submissive dog. I used to do that shit. So I was like, So you can know a lot about people by the way that they behave in certain situations. You know, in shamanism, it's like, oh, those are wolf tracks, so it's probably a wolf. And we're all the same. We all have the same shit going on with us. And when you do shadow work, you realize that. You know that. It's like, we're not that different. And thank God for that, because if somebody comes to me with a specific issue, I know exactly how to help them with it, because we're not all that different. We're pretty cookie cutter. And thank God for that, right? But let's talk about being spiritual now as being the hobbyist phase. Being spiritual is like joining the gym. You've got the yoga mat, the crystals, maybe a meditation app subscription you forgot to use, and you tell everyone you're on a journey. Cute. Now, the journey, you're wandering through the forest of existence with a flashlight that keeps flickering out. You focus on seeking. You're looking for something bigger, deeper, juicier than your 9-to-5 and Netflix binges. You have an awareness of a deeper reality. You know there's more than meets the eye. Congratulations, you've achieved transformer level philosophy. More than meets the eye. Get it? Can coexist with the ego. Your Instagram bio says spiritual seeker while your ego is in the background doing push-ups. Being spiritual is basically casually dating the divine. You're intrigued, you're swiping right on God, but you haven't committed. And when you understand this, you see how spiritual people will flit from practice to practice. It's very difficult for a spiritual person to get a mentor and really lean in to one spiritual practice. I tell people, pick a book and study it, become an authority on that book. And I see people struggling with that. I used to flit from thing to thing as well. Right now I want to become an authority on the Joe Dispenza book, How to Break the Habit of Being Yourself. And I'm listening to it all the time. When I'm playing Silk Song on my Nintendo Switch, what am I listening to? An audiobook. I do this with everything. No matter what I'm doing, I've got an audiobook in the background. So become an authority on something. And that's the best defense against ego, because once you become an authority on a spiritual thing, you'll see that they're all pretty much all the same thing. But I see people talking about spiritual seekers. Aren't you tired of being a seeker? Don't you want to find the fucking thing? Don't you want to find it? For real. But then again, there's nothing wrong with being spiritual. It's just that it can get co-opted by the ego. And that's what you want to watch out for. Because the goal of all of this is the destruction, the removal, the making the ego non-influential in your life anymore. That's the goal of all of this, of all of it. I used to, okay, so let me explain this to you. You know, I met my father-in-law, and see, I love my in-laws. I'm just not talking to them right now because I really don't even know why. They're mad at me for something that I didn't even do. That's the thing. When you get outside of ego consciousness, people will start being mad at you for stuff that you're not doing. Okay. So, but I encouraged him, like, if you're going to do this, get a mentor, because your ego is going to snap back. You might develop a spiritual ego. And he said, I'm not doing that. And I'm like, well, then don't do this shit at all. Don't read the book. If you're not going to get a mentor, don't do it. Because when I worked with my father-in-law, we were having dinner at a pizza place. I'll never forget this. Merrick and I talk about this all the time. And we were talking to them, and we saw both him and his wife recognize that they have an ego. Oh my God, it was beautiful. We walked out of that pizza place just on cloud 9. Oh my God, it was so beautiful. And I told him, please get a mentor. He can obviously fucking afford it. Why, if you can afford a mentor and you're not taking advantage of that, why? Why would you not take advantage of that? But over the next few years, I watched this spiritual ego take him over. And he started doing this word salad shit. He became very hostile. He started picking fights with me. There was this spiritual one-upmanship. And I'm like, and I was powerless to do anything about it. All I could do is say, please go get a mentor. They can help you with this. You're not supposed to be feeling this way. And he goes, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting a mentor. Don't eat it. Don't eat it. And the last time I saw him, he did not look well. He looked panicked, afraid, scared. And I just said, you need a mentor. I needed a mentor. Everybody needs a mentor. Some of you have made me your mentor through this YouTube screen. So, but you need a mentor, and it doesn't even have to be a formal mentor, but you got to have somebody to take you from being spiritual to being awakened. You want to be awakened. Awakened is where it's at. You want that for yourself. So now we're going to move on to being religious. So this is playing by the rule book. Religion is cosmic HOA bylaws. It's less about exploration and more about compliance. Community oriented, Sunday potlucks, matching outfits, and the occasional guilt trip included. We also have structured beliefs. There's a manual, no freestyling. And also external authority. You have Sky Parent handing out gold stars and punishment like a divine kindergarten teacher. Practices and rituals. Stand, kneel, chant, repeat. Insert cash offering, smile, leave. Religion is arranged marriage with the divine. Your family signed you up whether you wanted to or not. And people are worried about cults in this country, and you should be, but cults can thrive under a religious framework, especially a Christian framework. I have seen so much bullshit coming from Christianity. At this point, I'm like, calm the fuck on. Let's look at some bullshit now. So you guys can see, I'm listening to, I'm in the midst of listening to this talk. If y'all want me to be afraid of Palantir, y'all are doing a terrible job, because the more research I do and the more I listen to the leaders of it and hear them explain it, and there's really nothing to be afraid of. These guys are okay. They are. The elites, however, are terrified of them. The elites are terrified of these people. That's why there's so much fear mongering about it, because I'm telling you, these people are about power to the people. They really are. They believe in winning, that everyone can win, and only losers would be afraid of Palantir. If y'all don't like hearing that, I'm sorry. That's the truth. So let's watch this bullshit right here.
You got to learn to keep the secrets. Hey, Miss Karen, come up here. Rick, come up here, because I know there's transitions. It's all it is. It's all it is. It's simple transition of what God's about to do here. Come down here. I want everybody, you see this precious lady? If you've got her back, come down here.
I haven't seen this before. I'm just blind.
Your youth that are here tonight and others that may not be here, not able to be here, but your youth have a level of maturity that's beyond their years. And you have a lot of servants, and you have a lot of people that's willing to serve. And you also have inner circle. One of the great ministers of our day, who pastors one of the greatest churches in America, mentors people for ministry. And he told a friend of mine this. This friend of mine was starting to have very well-known people to come to their church. And people would pick them up, and sometimes people would be in the room, and they would want to discuss serious issues in the body of Christ and things that had come up, to know how to pray about it, to know how to deal with it. And the bishop noticed some of the guys were listening. Okay? And he stopped. He said, "You men, look at me." He said, "You're going to be in the presence of greatness. People who hear from God and people who know a lot. And they know information. And there's going to be times they have to discuss things. And the greatest thing you'll ever learn when you're in the presence of greatness is to how to shut your mouth and let other people talk, and you listen and never repeat it. Learn to shut up, be in the presence of greatness, and when you hear something, to hide it in your heart. But if you can hear it and go to your prayer closet and never speak it, you got to learn to keep the secrets. You hear me? In the business world, in the government, in politics, in the military, and in the church, if you can learn to be in the inner circle, know what's going on, worship God, and just pray about it, you will always sit in the third chair. God sees that you honor those things that are the mysteries of the kingdom. And in life, He's going to bless you like you can't even imagine with friends, because they're going to know you can go to them, trust them with anything.
I didn't know what that was going to be, but did you know that it's now legal for pastors and church organizations to be political? You know, our good friend Candy, I was trying to look, because Eyes on Jesus, I want to talk about Eyes on Jesus just a little bit. I know somebody who got wrapped up into this Eyes on Jesus cult, and they ended up in psychosis. It was very bad. And I'm like, well, you put your eyes on Jesus and you took your eyes off your life. They run a coffee shop in Nashville, and it's like a trap. Like you think you're going in there to get a cup of coffee. And he talked about how there was a really cute girl as the barista, and next thing there's a church in the back, and they're like, hey, let's go in here and pray. And so, you know, the religion can lead to culty ass shit. And Candace Owens did kind of an expose. She exposed how, you know, churches can now be political. And ironically, the stuff that they're being political about is about what is bad for America, essentially. And while we're on this subject, you know, yeah, I in listening to Alex Karp and Sam Altman and Peter Thiel, is there a risk of me getting brainwashed by just listening to them? Yeah, and I'm very critical of things. I just don't believe things. But at the same time, he says that you have to use the software to see that civil liberties are baked in, that you can't mass surveil people, that unless you wouldn't know what he's talking about unless you have built something yourself. Yet that you have to build something in order to see the truth about it. I myself have built several things. So I'm probably gonna do the deep dive, especially on that particular podcast, but there's really nothing to be afraid of with Palantir. But there's everything to be afraid of with religion. You know, religion can brainwash you. That stuff about keeping secrets, that is wild. That is wild. They get tax exempt status by being religious, and it's so damn culty. I feel weird whenever I talk to a Christian person. There's a defensiveness about them. There's a fear about them. Something feels off with a religious person, with a Christian person. And I know there are awakened Christian people. I mean, I like going to church sometimes. I mean, church can be very fun, but I'm talking about the people who have taken their ego and placed it up into the sky. You know, their God just happens to be against the things that they're against. How convenient. So religion is about control. People can use spirituality as a religion as well. A little bit of overlap there. But let's talk about being awakened now. This is the nuclear option. Awakening isn't cute. It's not crystals and sage sticks. It's an ego carpet bombing. One day you're you. The next day you're staring in the mirror like, who the hell was that imposter all these years? here's what happens when you awaken. A profound shift. This is not a hobby. This is your brain getting drop kicked into another dimension. The dissolution of the ego. You realize all your achievements, titles, traumas, and drama were basically monopoly money. You have the cessation of chronic suffering, not because you fixed anything, but because you finally saw through the illusions that kept it alive. And fundamental life change. You don't just buy a new journal and light some incense. Your entire identity and value shift. And then you have a different state of consciousness. You stop sleepwalking and realize you were never the sleeper. You were the dreamer. Awakening is the shotgun marriage with the divine. No time for cold feet. And again, I'm going to say, if you think that we need an ego, if you think that the ego is your friend, if you think that it's okay to do drugs, you're not awake. An awakened person won't get drunk. An awakened person won't need drugs. And also, an awakened person will want to end suffering. They won't create any more suffering in their life, and they won't create any suffering in the lives of others. And they'll set boundaries with people who are out of control and love creating suffering. And again, let me reference, my situation with my father-in-law. My father-in-law created a lot of suffering in our life. And we eventually got to the point where I don't want this suffering in my life. It's interesting, my stomach issues started on the weekend that we went to go visit Merrick's family. Had to do with my father, had to do with them. And now that I'm not, my stomach problems are going away. And I realized that I was creating suffering in my life by trying to have relationships with people who are chronically suffering. And an awakened person is going to do that. And that's primarily why I've shifted so much. I've never been this far from a dysfunctional system. It's left me a little unmoored. It's left me feeling a little alien, because even though I am a shaman and even though I have awakened, sometimes you just find yourself in situations, mainly due to family, coworkers. Maybe you just kind of find yourself in these situations where you're supposed to take a stand for yourself. It's a design of the universe by God and the spirits for you to say, hell no. You're supposed to stand up for yourself. You're supposed to stick up for yourself because you fucking matter. Sorry. Hey, you're an important person. You're a worthy person. You fucking matter. And an awakened person is going to ride this fine line of compassion and withdrawal. Like we're unlikely to walk over hot coals without being really, really present. We're going to be focused more on creating present. It doesn't mean enduring shit. And my father-in-law had this weird idea that just because you're spiritual or you're awakened, you should be able to endure anything. And that's not true at all. It's actually the opposite of that. You stop putting yourself through unnecessary hell as an awakened person. But let's talk about the overlap and where things get weird. These categories aren't airtight. People slide between them like drunks on a dance floor. Religious pretenders. Some people go to church just for the community. They're not true believers. They're networking. Then you have the spiritual pretenders. Some show up to meditation groups to cosplay as enlightened sages while secretly scrolling Tinder under the cushion. I've actually seen this. I've seen this. Like we're in a meditation room and not Tinder, but it was Grindr. And we're meditating, and I hear somebody's Grindr bell go off. And we all just look at each other. Y'all know the Grindr sound? I'm not going to play it, but that Grindr sound, you know, somebody's looking to suck some dick if that Grindr thing goes off. But here's the insanity factor. Every group eventually succumbs to ego, dogma, gossip, power games. It's mold that grows wherever humans gather. And did you know this? That you have to actually work. like if you have a group, it's eventually going to succumb to ego. And I have some followers that will send me nice comments, and then out of the blue start calling me a narcissist, an abuser, all these things. And over the years, I've just realized that it's just pain, body, and ego. I don't take it seriously anymore. And so, but it usually says the same thing. Like you're an abuser, Patrick. You're a narcissist. And it's the same fucking thing coming out of people who are otherwise conscious, kind people. And so, and you learn to understand that. Am I an abuser? Oh, hell fucking no. Am I a narcissist? Well, I mean, if I was a narcissist, I'd probably be a lot wealthier, probably have a harem of boys, men around me. So no, I'm not a narcissist. Only a narcissist would want that kind of shit. So, but I do think it's weird that happens in people from time to time. I just let them go through it. Sure, call me whatever name you need to, because an awakened person is not going to freak out about that shit, because they're going to know who they are. They're going to know who they are through a deep, deep process. And then the precious awakening, that moment when you see the insanity and don't flinch, that's the real awakening. When the guru cracks, the community implodes, and you stay awake, that's your diploma. So, if we look at our good friend and brother in Christ, Aubrey Marcus, he's going through a period where his shit is being cracked open and cracked apart, and his community is imploding, but he's not staying awake. Like if somebody accuses me of something and it's not true, generally I'm like, yeah. It might be how my mother-in-law is trying to convince people that I'm keeping her son away from her. And I'm like, honey, I used to encourage my husband to call you and stay in touch with you. He don't fucking want to do it. He don't want to do it. I can't control him. I can't control him at all. I was talking this morning with him. I'm like, I know how to manipulate you. And he goes, how? And I'm like, I could just cuddle you. Like he loves cuddling in the morning when we wake up. He'll just stay in bed with his arms around me. Like he'll just be like, he's not moving. And then if I get up, he'll get up. I'm joking. I don't manipulate him. All right, so here we go. How they handle being challenged. Here's where the masks slip. Challenge someone's worldview and watch how fast the claws come out. The religious response. If you poke their sacred cow, they either double down or blow up. They'll act like they've got the hotline to heaven and you're just a fool who doesn't get it. Their ego is outsourced to an external God, one who judges, punishes, and occasionally rewards them like a divine slot machine. The spiritual response is they'll say love and light while secretly seething. They believe everyone is good except the boys who are bad, who obviously just aren't evolved yet. Spoiler, that's judgment in tie-dye pants. Okay, so the awakened response, they shrug, maybe even laugh. They'll admit when they're wrong without reading a funeral procession for their ego. They've got inner peace, happiness, and here's the kicker, freedom from fear. To them, everything is happening exactly as it should. Even you challenging them is part of the cosmic joke. If you want to know how awakened someone really is, challenge their beliefs. Their reaction will tell you everything. So let me clarify something. I said I'd have a harem of boys. To me, a boy is like a 25-year-old man. I mean, I'm an older gay guy now. So I'm not talking about little kids. Little kids fuck that shit. But to have a harem of like 25-year-old men, that if I were a narcissist, that's what I would have. I would like, yes, look at all these young studs and being spiritual and shit. I might have even wanted to do something like that when I was first initiated or awakened, because I was a sexual person. I was a very sexual person, and I thought, yeah, let's start a club of hot men. oh gosh. Whew. Man, how things have changed. I only want one hot man now, and it's my husband. Okay, so here's the ultimate truth. Spiritual, you're seeking, adorable, but still tangled up in ego's tricks. Awakened, you're gone, fearless, at peace, and free from the ego's chokehold. Religious, you're following rules, rituals, and someone else's God-shaped ego projection. And the overlap. Every community eventually goes insane, and every ego eventually shows its teeth. The test is whether you collapse with it or wake up through it. So if you're in a community where you see people going insane, if you're in ego is in everything. And as soon as you awaken and you see through the whole lies and the bullshit about it all, yeah, let me reference, thank you, spirits. That one video I talked about earlier about from this girl who was an ex-New Ager. You know, she saw the elements of insanity in New Age and she left it. But you can see the insanity in a group and be okay with it. And that's the awakened response. You know, there's people who are awakened in churches, and there's even awakened spiritual people, and they just see the insanity in it, but they love it. They love it. Like somebody that I love a whole lot speaks that spiritual love and light language because that she feels that that's where her audience is. And she's probably right. Because if you want an audience, you're going to have to speak some language of that audience. What I'm doing here, it would be easier if I just fear-mongered. If I fear-mongered. Probably get more attention if I told you must be very afraid of this stuff. So just because somebody is doing something, let's say they're religious or let's say that they're spiritual, they may be awakened behind the scenes, but this is their way of reaching people. You see, it might be their way of reaching people who otherwise would not hear a message. Sometimes they might be speaking the language. Okay, thank you, spirits. Spirits said if you wanted to help Spanish people, you would learn how to speak Spanish. And we're going to leave that there. You can fake spiritual or religious, but not awakened. It's easy to look spiritual or religious. Light a candle, wear a mala bead necklace, toss out some love and light jargon, and boom, you've got the starter kit. Or show up at church, sit, stand, kneel on cue, nod during the sermon, and everyone thinks you're holy. Spirituality and religion both come with costumes, scripts, and social cues you can mimic without ever changing a damn thing inside. Awakening, though, that's different. You can't fake freedom from fear. You can't fake the absence of chronic suffering. You can't fake the dissolution of ego because once it's gone, it changes how you move in the world. Awakened people don't cling, don't flinch when challenged, and don't need to prove anything. You either radiate that peace or you don't. There's no mask convincing enough to cover the ego when it's still in charge. That's why spotting the difference matters. Spiritual and religious identities are performance-based. You can't get the part without living the truth. Awakening, on the other hand, is the one thing the ego can't counterfeit. It's obvious when it's real and obvious when it is not. Now, I'd like to take a moment to say here while I'm wearing my mala beads. Sometimes I like to wear them like this, like this, when I want to feel extra spiritual. No, I actually love these. I love these mala beads. I do. They're nice. I used to wear them when I worked at the rehab to cleanse my aura. Okay, so nobody is any better than anybody else. And we watch out for feelings of superiority. An awakened person is not better than a religious person or a spiritual person, any more than an oak tree is better than a willow tree. And while we're on the subject of trees, you You cannot grow apples on a pear tree. And this is a process. It's a process of awakening. There are no shortcuts. It cannot be rushed. But awakening is a willingness to face your fears, challenge your beliefs, live in truth. That's a big one. Got to get real comfy with the truth. May not be able to tell the truth to people. Like, I know some things that I can't tell you because it sounds outrageous. Some of you may want me to tell you this stuff, but I'm not doing it. It's for you to realize on your own. I want that for you. I want you to realize it on your own. Because if I told you what exactly was going down, you would reject it. Many people do. I mean, when I realized it, it was like, ooh, It's a realization. It's like slipping into a warm bath. But if somebody were to tell me it outright, I would have been, that's no. So in awakening, you can realize things. You can just realize it. You don't have to be told. Actually, it can't be told. You just realize it. Kind of like how cats and dogs are both animals, but they're two completely different things. They have two different ways of being. No one is any better or any worse than anybody else. And, the last video I made about the elites, the elites are just the elites. They're no better or any worse. They think they're better than other people, but in reality, they're just people. Everybody shits. Unless you have a robot stomach or you're a vampire but generally everything shits. But so if you've watched this whole presentation and you say to yourself, well, Patrick, I'm not as awakened as I thought I was, or I still have lots of fear around certain things. And that's good. That is good. There's still a lot of work for me to do around various things. So grab a shovel, bitches. Just get to work. Because awakening isn't some final boss battle where you roll credits and float off into bliss. If you notice there's still fear lurking in the corners around death, rejection, money, relationships, an awakened person doesn't ignore it. They lean in and do the work to dissolve it. That's the difference. Fear isn't proof you failed. It's the doorway. Here's the trap. When the ego takes its big hit, the spiritual ego often steps in wearing a guru mask. It tells you you're enlightened, done, superior, and ready to teach the world. Spoiler alert, that's still ego. Many spiritual teachers operate from this place without realizing it. And you know what? That's fine. It's part of the natural process. The spiritual ego is the ego's last stand. It doesn't disappear overnight. The real test is whether you stay honest about it. Awakening isn't about being flawless. It's about catching yourself when the spiritual ego tries to sneak back in and putting in the difficult, diligent work to keep dissolving fear. You're never done. The process itself is the point. An awakened person may spend the rest of their lives detangling themselves from the programming and conditioning of living in an unconscious world. That is the work. And doesn't it feel good to know exactly what to do? Sometimes when I work with people, especially with addiction recovery, they'll say, well, Patrick, I'm just trying to figure it all out. And I tell them what my sponsor told me. It's been figured out. They put it in books. You don't have to figure it out because the ego wants to figure it out. And if you can just be told, if you could be told about it, you're golden. You're golden. You are so golden. All right, that's the end of this presentation. So do you have a better handle on the differences between religious, spiritual, and awakened? I know I do. I know I do. I am going to continue to awaken. And, you know, I don't think there is anything to fear from Palantir. And I'm probably going to do a deep dive on that. But there's a lot of fear mongering about this stuff. A lot of it. It's very difficult to penetrate that fear mongering and get to what's really going on. So I love you so very, very much. I want you to have a beautiful, lovely day, free of fear, free of anxiety, free of all these things. I want you to be free. And that's what our AI song is about today. I love you so much. Thank you for all your support and love. Please have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
I walk through the shadows, chasing old lies. Fear was the jailer that locked up my skies. But the bars were illusions, smoke on the air. When I opened my eyes, there was nothing there. False evidence appearing real. Awakening is freedom, no chains, no disguise. When the fear dissolves, the truth never dies. You can't fake this fire, it burns crystal clear. Awakening is freedom, and freedom is no fear. The ego loves panic, it feeds on control. It whispers disaster, it gnaws at the soul. But when silence arrived, the noise disappeared. The monster was hollow, the terror insincere. Face everything and run. Awakening is freedom, no chains, no disguise. When the fear dissolves, the truth never dies. You can't fake this fire, it burns crystal clear. Awakening is freedom, and freedom is no fear. There is a version of me that never existed. It rattled its chains like a ghost in a haunted house. Some people want me to bring the ghost back, but it's long